do. Here we go.
So we're first one.
Yes.
Go back to the first one. Then you'll understand where you're catching up from.
That's right.
Now we're on our way.
That's right. When you last left your intrepid explorers, monkeys were trying to break into our bag. So we were at Arusha and we met our lovely guide who was going to be our guide throughout Tanzania. Mrija is affectionately known as MJ because Americans apparently cannot pronounce his name. But so MJ met us with our safari vehicle for the rest of the time. So we all loaded up and we had...
Probably best to say a safari vehicle can hold 7 people comfortably. Yeah. So
you're freezing a little bit.
We had 6.
Yeah, 7 people.
Yes. And not including the driver. So it's a total of 8 people. 6 is more common and somebody can change out sitting in the front of the vehicle, but it can hold 7 people in addition to the driver.
Right. And then if you have someone or multiple someones who get car sick, the front row and that front seat are really their only options. And there is no seat in a safari vehicle that is not going to be
correct
like that.
These are under construction roads that are very common, and there are few roads that are smooth.
Very few.
The rest of the time, if you're like us, growing up in Georgia, it's an old dirt road.
Yep.
It is what it is. That's what happens.
They laugh and they say, "Are you enjoying your Tanzania massage?" Right. And so when it's the, washboard, and a washboard road is the least of your problems. Like that is a very well kept road in yes. Tanzania. So you're talking about it would pull the wheel off of a regular car that's yes. not designed, if it's not a Land Rover or a Land Cruiser. We were in a Land Cruiser, by the way. It's
fun fact. The reason they do Land Cruisers that are Toyotas is because they're easier to work on. There are less computer parts than there are in the Range Rovers. So the Land Rovers. So you will see a lot more of those, even the Four Seasons, all of those usually use the Land Cruiser for this reason, because they do break down and they're easier to work on. Okay. Fun fact over.
Moving on. Yep, exactly. But we did. Yeah. If we saw something broken down, it was a Range Rover. It was not a Land Cruiser, which was interesting too. Because we saw more than one of those. But understanding how rough the roads is really a pretty important piece to this kind of puzzle. If you have any kind of skeletal or muscle damage, you really need to consider how you want to visit Africa. A game drive of 3 hours is going to feel like you have ridden the roughest roller coaster you have ever ridden on repeat for that amount of time. It is a very rough ride, even in the front. You are going to get bounced around. You are going to get slammed around. I mean, it's even with your seatbelt on, it's a really rough ride. So just be prepared for that and plan accordingly. And obviously, if you're planning with us, we're going to tell you this again, but we're also going to be able to say, that's why we're asking you about your physical capabilities. It's not just, can you step up into a truck, but can you sit on something that is literally trouncing you around for 4 hours at a time? Because that's really the shortest game drive you kind of get. Your morning drive, your afternoon drives, they're still 3 to 4 hours long.
And Mandy's being generous when she's like doing this, because there were some times we were like, whoa, like, I mean, truly on a roller coaster. So these are some serious bumps and roads, because there's rainy season in Africa. And if these are dirt roads, they get washed out. They don't get scraped every couple of weeks or anything like that. They may get scraped once a year.
He said every 2 years, like in the crater, they try to do stuff every 2 years, because every time they work on a road, they're interrupting the ecosystem and the animals lives. Now, we say that, and in the crater, which is where we're headed to talk about, there are over 500 safari companies that work the crater. And I'm saying that now because this is why you book with somebody like us who have the contacts to get you on a camp inside the park. We went into the Ngorongoro Park. We went up the side of this crater. So the Ngorongoro crater, for those of you that don't know what it is the largest caldera in the world. That means it is the biggest volcanic crater on the planet Earth. So the inside of this crater is now basically this safari park, mini safari ecosystem with these gigantic walls around the rim. So because of that, it's like this enclosed thing that you can go and see so many animals in this one spot that you can do in a day, which is incredible.
Think of terrariums. Terrariums have those whole little domes and things. It's exactly like that because you are put into that area. You just happen to have the sun and the sky and all of that stuff still available, but that's
not an actual dome over it. Yeah, exactly. Right. So we stayed on a camp, and there are very few. They do have multiple camps, but there are very few that are actually up on the rim of this crater. There are no camps down on the floor. So the people that stay on the rim are the first ones to the floor every morning, because everyone else has to come from far outside of this park, get through the gate, check in. There's paperwork involved. That takes like 15 minutes. They don't even open those gates until 6 a.m. They're at the gates waiting. You're in that line to do your paperwork. You got to do all of that. Then you've got to get up the one side of the crater, which is an eventful ride. And then you go down the other side of the crater, which you would think would also be terrifying and weird, but down was not nearly as bad as up the outside. I don't know why, but it wasn't. So into the crater you go. But if you were in one of these camps that are on the rim, you get like an hour and a half head start in front of the other 500 safari companies and their vehicles. So when we started our day, the sun was coming up. We were seeing animals left, right, and center before we ever even got down to the floor. Yeah. And then get to the floor of the crater, and the crater is different areas. There's a marshy area. It's basically the Lion King minus giraffes and cheetahs in the crater. Everything light touches them, but that's pretty much it. There's a marshy area. There's a foresty area. There's a big plains area. And it's all inside this, whatever square mile crater. Right. So if you were only going to do Tanzania and only going to do like one big thing, the crater 100% would be what I would tell you to go do.
You will not see all the animals in the big five there. Right. But you will see a majority of the animals there. It's like
they have a rhino, they have buffalo.
I was going to say the cats are the main thing that
they have lions.
The leopards, I think is,
and they have who'd I leave off?
They have elephants too.
So no, the big five are in the crater.
But they ran off the leopards were run off because remember we saw one because of the
cheetahs. They took the cheetahs out.
The cheetahs are left. Okay, so it was one of the two spotted cats. They took the cheetahs left
are the ones that are hyenas because the hyena population was so high they were decimating the cheetahs. So they went in and basically tagged and took the cheetahs out because the hyenas they were going to completely die. So all of the big five can be seen in the crater. We didn't see the rhino in the crater. No. But that was just bad luck on our part. But there are rhinos in the crater. So potentially you could see all of the big five in the crater. We saw 4 of the 5 while at the crater because we didn't see the rhino. And then we saw just like the tiniest little bit of a swoosh of a tail of the leopard because he zipped across the road on our last day leaving. But the crater it's incredible. I mean, it's just insane. I mean, it's so amazing. But stay when we tell you need to stay on the rim, you need to stay on the rim.
Yeah.
That being
it's
said,
beautiful. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful up there. And you're still, even on the rim, elephants still traipse by, buffaloes still come by. So like you're not out of the area of the wild animals in your camp.
You still need an escort.
Here, yeah, we're getting into the escort part of it now, but being up there means you can still get to the animals. It's not like, oh, I'm out of the way, I don't have to worry about it. They are still up there. They are still making their traipses up and over the crater and stuff like that. In the tented camps, this was our first foray into them. This was our least luxurious area because there are different levels of that. It's perfectly fine. Beautiful camp area, but because, and I guess this was kind of complicated for some people to understand, you are staying in an area with wild animals. You are not in a zoo. These are not animals you can pet or touch. We have security that were outside our camp tents at all times here. We had the local tribes, Maasai, are the ones who do the security. They walk with spears, okay? Because these are wild animals. They do not try to hurt the animals unless the animals are charging and someone else is in danger. And I say that only to say this is their way of life. This is what happens in the wild with these animals. They do not purposely try to hurt them. They try to move them along so that they don't hurt anybody else because we are in their space.
Not the other way around. Yeah.
Correct. Like,
and every single morning that we woke up in every single tented camp, we would talk to our Maasai and say, so what did you see last night? Because we would hear things. And in the crater, we could hear them walking past the buffalo. And almost every morning he would say, it's buffalo, it's buffalo, it's buffalo. But then that last night, it was not buffalo, and we knew it was not buffalo because it did not sound like a buffalo. And the tent, for perspective, this particular tent, because this camp is not a permanent camp, this is actually a temporary camp. So it was wood platforms directly on the ground. And then the tent itself is, imagine the heaviest of duty nylon canvas type tent. And it's double layered. So you have the double layer, then you have a screen, because we had windows that were that screen nylon, and then they had zippers on the outside where they could zip the windows closed. And in Ngorongoro, they zipped us like light tight zipped down.
And it got cooler in Ngorongoro in the crater than it did in most places.
Yeah.
They have heaters there, and they would bring nice little hot water bottles for the bed for the people who got cold. We nixed both of those the entire time. So I know that the other people with us enjoyed having the hot water bottles in the bed that warmed up the sheets for them, and having the little heater on when they got up in the morning. But these tents, there was about 8 or 15 of them kind of in a line or in the area. And between two of the tents was a Maasai. And when you would kind of step out of your tent, the Maasai would be standing there. He would come to you, and then he would walk you to the front, or they'd be standing at the front and ready to walk you back to your tent.
And if there wasn't one there, walkie-talkie.
You had a walkie-talkie, and that was to be used if there was not a Maasai there. There was also a flashlight so that you could go and kind of look out if you were trying to find somebody. There was bug spray, and I'm bringing that up because you are in the wild. I don't know how many times we need to say this. These are wild animals. You are in the wild. This is camping, and
don't have open food.
Full disclosure.
Despite your best efforts and no food, you can still get I don't even know what the right word is. Doesn't seem to be strong enough. Overrun.
You will have visitors. we had a lovely foray of ants that joined our tent from the time we left our tent in the early afternoon till the time we came back from dinner. We had more than an anthill of ants climbing the tent walls.
So you know that scene in The Bug's Life when he's saying to Hopper, there's more of them than there are of us, and they just like overrun the grasshoppers. So imagine that on the inside walls of your tent and your bathroom.
This is no longer cream colored or white. This is black with all of the little ants crawling over it. And that was the case on a couple of the walls of the tent. Because it's dark, you don't recognize that there's ants in your tent. What you recognize is you've walked into the tent and all of a sudden one of you is being bitten by an ant, and they're like, what is that? And you're like, well, I don't know. Let me check and see what that is. And then you're like, why do you have ants on you? And then you proceed to go, huh.
And you see the wall. Yeah. And so it was an adventure, but we did, to the Ngorongor's credit, I mean, they came running. We signaled for help. They came running to help us. We had to shake out all of our stuff, and they immediately moved us to a new tent, which was perfectly fine and perfectly clean. And our tent had been perfectly fine and perfectly clean up until that afternoon. So just, you're in the wild. Things like this happen. Scorpions.
Don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
I mean, it happens. It's fine.
You know, despite everyone's best efforts. Correct. It was the water. They were after the water, which explained why the bathroom looked the way that it did. And I won't even go there because you will have nightmares. But so it was just one of these things that it can happen. So understand, you tell the property, they fix it, they move you, everything was fine. They moved us in a heartbeat. Great, fine. Slept like a baby the rest of that night. The other thing with this property, because it is a temporary camp, there was not running water to our tent. So when we got there, they explained to us, you have these bottles of water. The bottles of water here by your bed are potable water that you can drink. The bottles of water in your bathroom, there's one that's big that you can use like to brush your teeth and stuff with, but don't drink that. And then the toilet is fine. You can flush the toilet, but when it's time for you to take a shower, you have to let us know and give us a time. So at dinner time, we would order our shower times. And when it was time for your shower, so the shower was basically a gravity
fed
shower, gravity fed shower. So they would bring the hot water to your bucket over your shower and fill it up. And they would call through the tent. Are you in there? Yes. So then they would ask you to turn the water on. Don't get under that water immediately. It's ice cold at the beginning. And then it comes out to temp, and you tell them whether the temperature is hot enough or cold enough or whatever. And they'll add or subtract hot water based on what you tell them.
Right.
But
it is odd. I'm going to tell you. They build the little platform in the back for the guys to shimmy up with the water that they pour into. So it is odd when you're in the shower and somebody goes, "Is the water okay?" And you're just like, "It's fine."
Yes. As you stand there in your birthday suit, getting ready to take a shower, and you're like, "Yes, it's just fine, thank you." Like it's just strange to know that it's a perfect stranger out there. So yeah, that was a little weird. But again,
it's the only one that was like that. And
it was the only one that was like that.
Camp now. So probably the next time someone goes, it will be the permanent tent, tented area. And you're not going to have to worry about that. But because it is the mobile transitioning one, because they'll move from one place to another depending on the season, it has to be, something they can break down and move along. So. But it was fun. It was actually fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a cool experience. The only other thing that was weird about that one that was a little different that people may not, expect was there is no running water in your tent. There is no electricity in your tent either. So when we got there, There's Wi-Fi in the main tent area where you eat dinner and hang out. And that is also where the electricity is. So if you have a charger, or you have to charge your phone, or you have a charging block or something like that you want to keep charged, that's where you're going to have to do it. Right. So my people with the CPAP machines, because this comes up, you have to have those portable batteries with you if you are going to be the ones that go to that camp. Like there's not going to be a generator at every tent. So you got to have those portable batteries, and you got to have them plugged in and fully charged for your nights at Ngorongoro. Now, that also being said, there are plugs in the safari vehicles that you can charge with. So you can leave one plugged in at the camp charging, and you can take the one you used overnight to charge and recharge it. That way you've got your two. And that worked out just great, and it was fine. The food at Ngorongoro was fantastic. The staff was incredible. The beds were comfortable. I mean, it was still very much a glamping experience. Yes. We had 3-course dinners,
And I was going to say, we met 4 other people who had come from another resort, and they were raving how much better this was over the other resort. How happy they were, how great everything was. And that was people that weren't in our group. They were just we were asking them where they'd been and stuff like that. And they were like, oh, we love this. This is great. And they will come up again because we ran into them at another resort too. But they were very happy with it. Nobody seemed to have any problems with the way the showers were done, having to have the security walk you to and from your tents or anything like that. So I think
expectations were managed, but that was definitely, a quite different experience.
Yep.
So, good to know about Ngorongoro. So we did Ngorongoro, and we saw, like we said, 4 of the big 5, and pretty much every species that was in the crater, minus the rhino, we got to see.
Yep.
Our very first game drive, we got to see a hyena going after a wildebeest baby, which was incredible. He was not successful, sadly, but really cool. And just, we saw so many things, elephants and their babies, and birds on top of birds, on top of birds, on top of birds, just so many birds.
Yeah, there were a lot of birds. That was shocking. How many different species of birds there were.
I don't know why it's surprising that there are that many birds in Africa. Like I don't know. But it was incredible. And so we left the Ngorongoro crater because we only did 2 nights there. You get a 1-day game drive through the crater. So you go out in the morning and you.
Well, I think you need to also say, we did one game drive in the crater, but even going from one location to the next is still a game drive because you're
still in the wilds of Africa. Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Targeted,
but that was specifically crater was 1 day just to go around there. Then the next day when we were leaving there, we were still doing a game drive because we were still seeing so many animals. But it was more of a transition drive than a specific location drive.
Exactly. And in the crater, we went and had breakfast, and there was a coffee truck at breakfast. That
confused us all. It was painted like a zebra.
Painted like a zebra. But it was like coffee and snacks and stuff. It was crazy. And so we had our own little picnic breakfast. So our driver, MJ, he got out, he set out the tablecloths, and he set out his whole full picnic breakfast. And
I mean, we're talking eggs and sausage and bacon and toast and yogurt. Like, we're not talking have a bagel.
No, it was a spread for breakfast. Hot tea, coffee, Cokes for us, because they know, yay. They knew what we wanted. And then we also had a little refrigerator in our safari truck that kept drinks cold. And then MJ did a great job for us too, because the big fear of a lot of people going on safari is that you have to, what they call checking the tire, which is you have to go to the bathroom. There is no bathroom. You are in the wilds of Africa, out on the Serengeti or out in this crater. So there is only one place to go, and that is to the back of the truck and go fast. But MJ was amazing. And he timed our drives around, and there are actual proper bathrooms in a lot of
bathrooms, or what they're called,
proper
bathrooms.
So actual 4 walls and a roof and a toilet, not just a hole and that kind of thing. So he would really do a great job of kind of coordinating our ride arounds so that we would have at least one proper bathroom in our drive at some point. And then we were never gone for more than the 4 hours, except for the full day in the crater. And the crater does have proper washrooms in a place that he took us twice that day.
Right.
And then lunch was a different thing. And then you get done with the crater and you spend the night. And then the next day you go out. And that was when we left and we went to a property called Lamala Nanyuki. And like Tiffany said, driving from one place to the other, you're still driving through the Serengeti. You're basically doing a game drive on your way because you're still out driving around where you would be doing a game drive anyway. Nanyuki is an incredible property. It's in the savannah.
Yeah.
It's just like it popped out in the middle where,
we reference Disney, but you'd be surprised how many people in Africa reference Disney too. Like they don't call the warthogs warthogs, they call them Pumbas because that's what everybody has Americanized them as. One of the spoonbills, they actually was like, oh, that's a zazu, and I'm like, that's not the real name of the bird. He's like, well, no, but that's how everybody knows.
It's a hornbill, that's right, yeah, but it's a zazu. But the Pumbas is a big one.
Yeah,
they have the whole country calls them Pumbas now.
Yeah, everybody does. But the interesting thing to me is if you've been to Walt Disney World and you've been to Animal Kingdom and you travel around and you will see the different areas in the park, it's truly like that. They knew what they were doing when they created all of the areas of that park, because you go through each of those little ecosystems when you're driving through the Serengeti. It was amazing to almost see that come to life before your eyes as you're driving around going, I'm really in Africa, and it really looks like what they've created in the US. It was
like it's above and beyond. Like they really did such a good job showing the flora and the fauna and how the things, and the anthills was one.
Yeah.
Like
the termite mounds.
Termite mounds. Yeah. So the difference between the Disney version and the real life version is there's about 900 million more in real life. They are.
I mean, here.
Everywhere. Like you look out over this huge.
Only in a certain area
but only in a certain area. That's exactly right. So you go and it's 3 miles of just mound, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and they're just gone. You don't see another one for days and days.
And the fun thing is about the termite mounds, when they are empty, another animal like the jackals or something else will move in and make that their home.
Yep.
So
we saw
those
a whole
things
jackal
never
family.
those are truly never empty. It's just used by a different animal for a different time. Because we went by one and you saw all the baby jackals running around, and then they stopped and they were hiding by some of the little parts that were higher than the other, looking around. But it was so cute because you could see them pop back in there and then they pop out the top of it, and you'd be like, oh my God, okay, that's kind of cute. So even if the termites weren't using them, another animal was, which was cool.
Yeah. Really cool. You definitely get the circle of life, obviously, is a real thing, and you see that it lives and breathes in Africa. I mean, it is morning, noon, and night there, and Nanyuki is literally just like plunked down in the middle of the savannah. There are just a couple of trees around this property, and then it's open savannah.
Yeah.
So when we're pulling up, we're driving through, and there are giraffes, and there are water buffalo, and there's a lion, and it was just insane. And then you get there and you go, okay, so 4 minutes ago was that lion. There's no fence between this. There's no nothing. Okay. And so you get there and you check in, and Wright, who is lovely, comes and greets you. And Christina greets you at the desk, and they have a fabulous gift shop at Nanyuki. And you walk through and you go down these steps, and the bar is there. And they have these yes, la, la, la. They meet you with this wonderfully refreshing tea.
Yeah, it's a mint tea.
For those of you in the South, it's a lot like fruit tea. Not quite as sweet as fruit tea, but
Yep.
It's really good. And then it opens out onto their fire pit, and it's the savannah. So when we walked in and we sat down with our tea, there were elephants off in the distance, just walking across the savannah. And we're getting our briefing and telling them about our food likes and dislikes and things like that. And then they gave us our room keys, because they, of course, still use hard metal keys, because your doors are solid wood. Mm-hmm. These tents are raised up off the ground, permanent tents. You have electricity, you have running water, you have a soaking tub, you have an indoor shower and an outdoor shower. And an outdoor shower. So
we'll post videos of the walkthrough of all of the tents.
Be sure to check our YouTube channel. We did a walkthrough when we were at Hemingway's. We did a walkthrough at both of these luxury tented properties. We did not do a walkthrough of Ngorongoro.
No, because we knew it was changing.
Yeah, and by the time, others go, unless you go in the next 8 months, it's going to be a completely different property anyway. So, yes, you are literally in a luxurious suite to yourself. You have a living room, a refrigerator, water, a walk-in closet, basically, behind your bed. It's just lovely. It's just lovely. And then the porch on the outside at Nanyuki does not have a fence. It is a deck, and then it is the savannah. There is nothing between you and that savannah. So when you're sitting on that couch out there, it's just open. There's no glass. There's no nothing. And then you go to the right, and you have your own personal plunge pool, and it's covered. And why is it covered, Tiffany?
It's covered because we want to keep the animals out of it. Yeah. it's always covered.
The elephants. Yes. The elephants love.
Although we don't mind.
We were like, however, don't tell us that. We will leave it uncovered all the time. And they were like, yeah, except that then it's the water buffalo and the baboons.
Yes.
And the lions. And in this particular property, as soon as we got there and they gave us our briefing, part of our briefing was, no, you're not just going to get escorted at night here. You're going to get escorted all the time because we're not way up. They can come at any given moment. And on top of that, we have a pregnant lioness who's going to be having her cubs any minute now. 2 days
and she was sleeping under one of the tents the day before.
And she was sleeping under one of the tents the day before. So imagine.
And they showed us the video. And I mean, she's just laying there, and all of a sudden she just kind of yawns and looks at him. And it's like, I was a little close.
Yeah.
Okay.
So imagine
I'll happily walk around with anybody following me, doing whatever they need to do.
Yes. Imagine walking out of your tent in the morning and not realizing that she is right under your porch.
Yes.
Okay. So this is how this works. It is a safety thing for you and for them, we should point out. It's also for them. Another thing about Nanyuki that was really cool, one of the animals that's apparently really hard to see, and of course we saw a lot of them, are dik-diks, which are these tiny little deer, and they have these funny little noses. They're the cutest little things. But they were all around our tent. I mean, they were probably
all the
time, running around our tent. Super cute little things. But apparently pretty shy. And
then we also had the hyrax, okay?
Rock and cliff hyraxes.
Rock and cliffs. Yes, there was 2 different kinds, if you can believe that.
Or tree, that's what it was. Rock and tree. I'm sorry.
Rock and tree. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. The interesting fact of this is the closest relationship to them is an elephant. And they look like little groundhogs. I mean, they're just these cute little guys. They would hop up on the little deck as we were walking by, and they'd be looking at you with their little nose twitching, and they were eating, and then they'd hop away. They'd be hanging out on rocks with
making noises,
leopards and stuff around. I mean, they were
grabbing each other. Yeah, I'd never even heard of a hyrax until this trip, and I used to study all sorts of stuff about Africa. But
since we got back, guess who won the trivia? Who got the trivia right when they were like, "What is this?" I'm like, "That's a hyrax."
I didn't hear this story. You got a hyrax trivia question? That's hilarious.
I was like, because they were like, they're known to be the closest relations to an animal. I mean, an elephant. I was like, oh, that's a hyrax. I saw this.
I know. So Nanyuki, that was what was so incredible about Nanyuki is you are just plonked right in the savannah. And we were there one afternoon or the evening, and a jackal was chasing a Thompson's gazelle. Also not successful for those of you that are, worried about the prey animal. Didn't catch it, but it was quite the event there for quite some time. And that was the exact same area that we had seen the lion the day before. So we were waiting for her to just like pop up and grab somebody at any given moment. But no. And then Nanyuki's game drives were really fun because you're already right there. So literally, as you're driving out their driveway, you're already seeing all sorts of stuff. And that area of the Serengeti is known for its big cats. And boy, is it. We saw 3 leopards while we were there. And we
have to preface this by saying we were so lucky because honestly, everything that we saw, there are people who've been 3 and 4 times and have not seen everything that we were able to see. I mean, it's just crazy. And
or even one thing.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is traveling with wild animals in this area, it means that every single trip will be different. So although we're telling you about all these amazing things we saw, it's possible you may not get all of the big 5 on your first trip. You may not get all of the big cats. We saw so many cats that even MJ was so shocked because he's like, it's been 10 years since I've seen one of those. We've seen, it was just the things and the ways that we saw them with the babies. We saw so many babies. It's just shocking.
Things that we saw a caracal and her babies. Okay. He had not seen a caracal in 10 years and had never seen a caracal with babies. When we said we saw a caracal with babies, every single guide, the wildlife, where were you? What was it? Can I please see that video? Can you show me? And then they'd be like, oh, you so did see that. I mean, just incredible, right? And so people go, we talked about the big 5. You don't just get to see a leopard. Okay. People go and they go again, and they will go and they won't see a leopard for trip after trip after trip. And we saw 5. It was just insane. I mean, it was just incredible. So we obviously cannot promise any given thing. Go to the crater, you'll see a lot of stuff. We can't promise you what that stuff will be, but you have a much higher density population in a much smaller space. But that area of the Serengeti is known for its cats. And boy, did we see cats. We saw the caracal and her baby. We saw a cheetah with her babies. We saw leopards. We saw a leopard with its kill in a tree with a hyena under it. And then an elephant came to run the hyena away. It's just insane.
You can't make this up. I mean, the elephant is coming. He's flipping his ears. He's trumpeting, trying to get the hyena to go. The leopard's up eating. And then when the elephant decides he's done and he wants to walk away, you realize there's another leopard
laying
in the grass that nobody's seen. He's just laying there waiting because when the one in the top of the tree is done, they're going to go and eat the rest of it because they were a mating pair. So, I mean, these are amazing things. And yes, Nanyuki was amazing. Yes, Ngorongoro was amazing. Yes, Lamala in Curia Hills was amazing. I mean, all of our resorts were awesome. Our experiences are beyond the norm, if you will. But that doesn't mean your trip won't be very similar or your trip will be very different depending on when you go, where you go. And this is what comes into what is important to you. Like if Ngorongoro to see the crater and see most of the animals is fine, then maybe you don't need to go through the rest of the Tanzanian area. But if you want to go and you want to see gorillas, which we didn't do, you need to go to Uganda. So, I mean, there's different places and every kind of trip can be specialized. And we are more than happy to do that with you. We have the most amazing partners who are going to set you up with the perfect guides and really give you these experiences. We actually, you know, and moving through the process and everything, we decided that we were going to hike the base of Kilimanjaro as one of our last things, because I mean, we can go on and on about the animals. We're going to have pictures of the animals. We're going to show you that throughout our social media and stuff. But hiking the base of Kilimanjaro was not something that was on my list. I went along because it was part of the itinerary we put together. I am now glad I did it. Don't know if that will be what I do when I return, though. It is no joke. We hike to a base camp that is usually the second day. It takes 2 days of hiking for the people to get there. So
they don't start at the same place we did.
Yeah,
that's
we hike across rather than hiking up. But there is no running water here. There are no proper washrooms. And, you know, it is, in doing Kilimanjaro, you have to keep up with all of your trash. Like they weigh your trash at every base camp that you're at, and they keep up with that so that when you leave, you have to have the same amount of weight of trash that you've had from the beginning. And I mean, it's no joke. This hike was no joke. It's rocky.
11,555 feet is where the first camp is. So for these zero sea level people,
correct.
That is significant. Where we started was 9,000 and something feet.
Yeah.
So we did over 2,000 feet of elevation just in that 2 hour.
It was about, what is it? It was a little over a 4 mile out and back kind of hike. But it was serious. It was very serious. Usually hikers, there was we were a group of 6 people plus our guide, and we would have had, for that, they would have said if we were actually hiking, we would have had like 30 porters to carry all of the stuff we would need for hiking. The porters carry all of your things and help you with setting up camp and help you with keeping up with the trash and all sorts of things like that. This was just the 6 of us going kind of out and back. Very rocky terrain, which I was shocked by because I guess I didn't consider Kilimanjaro being so rocky. But there were gorges. There are no bridges. So you have to go down the gorge and up the other side to keep the trek going. We had like 3 of those to do. Usually in the rainy season, it's covered in water. So you have to hop across rocks to do that rather than going across the dry beds. So that was kind of an interesting part of the trip. It is a serious hike, so I won't tell you that it's easy kind of thing to do. If you are interested in doing something like that, we will have a long conversation
about what it is actually going to be, what you need to have to do it, and the expectations of you and everyone on it, because it is a very serious thing. The only way you're going to get off of there if you need medical assistance is by someone carrying you or a helicopter coming to evacuate you. The weather is very unpredictable. It can be somewhat clear and relatively warm, and then cold and rainy in less than a minute. I mean, it just goes. You are walking on the top of a volcano. It is at a very, very high elevation. There's very little wildlife. It is a tundra up there. So it's like a planet off of Star Trek or something. I mean, it's very, very bizarre how it changes and can go from very rocky and craggy to super sandy and flat. And then all of a sudden you're on this side of the hill and you're going down into these things, and visibility can be perfectly clear and you can see Kili, which was not the case for us that day. It was very foggy. We did not get to see the mountain. But very few do from that perspective because of the way the weather works. And so, if that is something that you want to do, we are happy to work with you on that. But it's a serious conversation. The guy, Paul, that was our guide, has summited personally 254 times. That does not count all of the times he's gone to the summit as a porter. So he's well over 500 summits.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's a fantastic guide. He knew a ton about the mountain. It was, really interesting the whole way there and back. He had a lot of really cool insights. And so it was a really interesting day. I'm with Tiffany, however. I will go back to that area. I do not ever need to cross the face of Kili again. We joke about, I am not a volcano person. Not my thing. I know too much about how plate tectonics work, and I just understand that it really is any second, regardless of where you are. And so that being said, though, in the last 60 days, I have been on 2 volcanoes. And, that makes 3 in my life.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that we can, customize these trips however you want them, as luxurious or as rustic as you are looking for. Mm-hmm. And, if you tell us your goal is to see the big 5, then, that is how it will be set up for you. Now that a truck can hold 7 people. So sometimes it makes it easier to say you just want to be a group of 4, a group of 6 or something like that. If you have a larger group, then you know that you're going to have to be divided between others. The tented camps are beautiful. They are luxurious. The staffs are amazing. I will tell you, every morning, because you don't have phone and electricity and stuff like that in a lot of places, the way they wake you up is they come to the tent for your wake up call and they call out jumbo jumbo, which is, hello in Swahili. And in most of the places where we were, we understand not every camp continues to do this, but they would offer to bring you a hot beverage in the morning. So, of course, it's us. We said, yes, please, hot chocolate. And they have a beautiful liqueur called Amarula, which is very similar to Bailey's. And we, of course, were like, if you're going to bring us the hot chocolate, you can throw some of that Amarula in there for us. We won't complain. They thought we were kidding the first day. They understood after that we were not. Every morning they'd bring it, and we would sit in our beds looking out over the view, drinking our hot chocolate before we started our day. I'm kind of sad to say that doesn't still continue now that I'm home.
Our husband should take note of this. But no, yeah, so it's just lovely. And we rounded out our trip at Lamalakiri Hills. It's way up in the northern Serengeti near the Mara River. This is the area that is made famous by the Great Migration, in the sense that whenever you watch a nature show and they talk about the Great Migration, they are up here in the northern Serengeti, where the wildebeests and the zebras are crossing the Mara River. There are 10 crossings down the Mara River. The one that we were most convenient to was 7. We did get to see the crossing. If you haven't seen those pictures yet, you will see them in photos and videos and things of that nature. As a science teacher person, it was a very emotional thing for me to get to witness that. I can't say the word copies. There's the big rock formations that you see anytime they talk about Africa. This is where our camp was. It was up in this selection of copies. And so we were really high up. And these porches did have little fences around them, more to keep the people on the porch and not fall down the thing. But it was a really cool location because that makes it really good for lions and leopards. So we had quite a bit of that. But most importantly, we were very strategically located for the Great Migration. And that is the place where we chose to do our hot air balloon safari. And our balloon safari, Tiffany and I, anyone that knows us, we do not like heights. We do not like small flying things.
I don't mind heights. I just don't like not having anything underneath me. That's kind of the problem. If I'm in a basket, there's nothing underneath me.
Yeah, like I said. So, yeah, she'll go up the Eiffel Tower. The whole tower's under her. It's the being lifted up. Okay. We genuinely thought we were going to be nervous wrecks on this hot air balloon and need copious amounts of alcohol. And we did not, in fact. The second it got off the ground, we were like, this is really cool. And
the scenery was just breathtaking. Like, you didn't pay attention to the height. You paid attention to what you were looking out over the horizon.
Yes, just immersing yourself in what was happening around and below you, that you can't take your eyes off of it. And our balloon driver was fantastic, and thankfully he did not go maverick on us and like drop us really fast or pull us up really fast or anything like that. He really did do a great job with keeping us sane. But we landed, we had a champagne toast when we landed. Then they took us off to our large.
Well, you forgot the reason that they have the champagne toast.
Yes.
You forgot that. Like, they have it because that's considered a very good thing. And what happens if you catch the cork?
I didn't. I fumbled mine. They gave me credit for effort. So,
well, what happens when you catch the cork is you're supposed to have good luck. And then
in theory, we both caught the cork.
So we both ended up with the corks from the hot air balloon ride, which is supposed to be good luck. And then they take the tops and make them into these cute little hot air balloon looking little things with the corks. So, but they do that every time because it's an old tale about people who did hot air balloon rides in the ancient times, I guess. So.
But yeah, so that area of the Serengeti during this time of the year is when the crossing is happening across the Mara, and the hot air balloon ride goes right over the river. And so when we happened to be there, they didn't cross, but it was the biggest population of wildebeest that had been there in days, and it was just like ants on a hill. I mean, it was incredible how many of them were there, and just getting to see that from that perspective was really amazing. And that area of the Serengeti, it was so different, and it was just cool. So, I mean, I would go back in a heartbeat. The other thing that I was going to bring up is we drove from Arusha to Nanyuki. That was a several hour drive. And then we drove from Nanyuki to Curia Hills, and that was a several hour drive. The people that we knew that we saw again
at Curia
Hills, they flew. And so they did not do that really long. It was like a 6-hour drive that day. It was a long day. They flew that. The planes that fly in the African bush are the planes that you see on TV flying in the African bush. They're this big. And their seats are this big. And their seats are this far apart in the aisle, more importantly. I expected the seats to be small. I expected the plane to be small. I did not expect to genuinely, a normal-sized human, not be able to fit in between the seats to get to the other seats. Everyone, even the teeny little people, were like squishing themselves through the seats to get up to the other seats. But it wasn't, that little puddle jumper was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was okay. But that part was a little crazy. And then flying over the crater was also exciting.
And I mean, and that's just it, is, just because we drove somewhere doesn't mean you couldn't fly somewhere. And everything that we did doesn't mean that's everything you need to do. Because some people have, a time limitation on it. We were there from September 1st through the 14th. So we were there for a good solid 2 weeks to do all of that. But of course it was more than that. It was 2 days to get there, a day and a half to get home pretty much. So it's a trip. And if you're going to go, we always say, make it worthwhile if you're going to be on a plane for that long.
Yeah. And we know we're pushing on our time too, but it's really important if you're going to do something like this, and it is a bucket list for you, that we we are going to ask you a lot of questions, and we're going to ask you a lot of questions that you may not understand why we're asking you those questions. You may feel like you have thought this out from top to bottom and inside out and backwards. So some of the questions may seem redundant to you, and some of the questions may seem obvious to you. We assure you there's a reason for that. And we just want you to make sure that you have the best experience, but also the safest experience. Because we have been on trips where people have broken legs, not that we were planning. But Antarctica, the lady last day at the hotel stepped off the step and broke her leg.
Yep.
You just cannot, you can't predict these things. So we try to make every effort to prevent things that are preventable. And a lot of our questions have to do with that. So please make sure that when you do talk to us about trips to Africa or wherever, that you're really no amount of information and your expectations is too much.
Right.
This is what we love to do. So we love to hear about what you want to do and what you hope to see and how you want to experience things, because it's what we do. It's what we live to do, is to make sure those come true as much as possible.
As much as we love to travel,
it's not
love hearing about your travel too, and knowing that we did something special. And there were a couple of special things that were included in this that we're not going to tell you about because we may choose to do it for you too. So just know that we try to elevate your travel by including special little things that you may not have thought of or you may not remember or anything like that. So, we are here to help you make your dream trip happen, however that looks, whatever it looks like. We work with some of the best partners in the industry. They're all vetted, they're all trained, they are, reviewed, and we personally know so many people. Like when we were there, we got to know a lot of the staff. Like our people were kind of like, well, why are you always talking to those people? And it's because those are the people who are going to be taking care of you and our future clients. So we make that effort. That's why we travel so much, because everybody's like, oh my God, where are you going next? Well, we're going these places so that we can help you. Because this is relationship. It's a relationship about learning you. And it's a relationship about learning the destinations and the people there. So everything that we did was something to do with cultural immersion. It was also something to do with what is specific to that area, that location, and how we can be better tourists, better people for the planet, and still see all the amazing things that are out there. So
we are better than we found it. Yes.
Yeah. We are here to help you. We are eager. The website we have up there, the web page is the Luxury Africa. You can find it from the homepage, and it has all sorts of different information on there. We're happy to talk with you, and don't be surprised if when we're talking to you, we're like, hold on, let me bring on the supplier that's going to be doing your trip for you, so that they can understand what you're looking for. Because it's important that we all get this right, because we realize it's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, and we want it to be everything that it possibly can be for you. So ask us any questions. We're happy to answer them. We obviously can talk quite a bit about this trip because it's amazing. And this is video 2, may even be video 3 by the time we cut it down. Who knows?
Check on YouTube to see those properties and see the walkthroughs. It is worth seeing. It's incredible. We have over 6,000 pictures.
Yes.
So, I'd love to say, it's going to be on YouTube. No, you'd sit there for 3 days, even if every picture was like a second. So we will not do that to you. But we will be dribbling out these pictures over the course of forever. And also probably putting together short YouTube videos of each destination, each spot, so that we can, do them and they're not 18 hours long. And then if you have any questions, obviously, don't ever hesitate to contact us. We obviously hated our trip to Africa and we'll never go back. We will go back at any given time. If you would like us to come with you for your group, that's an important thing too. This was a group of solo ladies. So if you've got a women's group, but you don't want to do that on your own, we're happy to go with you. That is part of what we do.
Twist my arm, please.
Go back to Africa. So absolutely, that's something we can build in for you. And we are there to handle every bit of logistics on the ground, and you're just there to enjoy your trip, regardless of where that is in the world. So that's it for now.
Well, Let us know if you have questions. Check out the webpage because I think you'll enjoy it. And we will be back with you guys again soon with updates on other trips.
Absolutely. See ya.